Good morning. October the 29th, I believe. As you can clearly tell, we're having a rainy morning. It's not very cool. 63 degrees. I mean, that's cool, but it's not cold. October, or this time of the year, we can still hang on to some warm days. It's a beautiful time of year, though. I mentioned that in another video. I may repeat myself sometimes. I apologize. I make these videos and I talk about my experiences that I have, and I hate to sound like I'm bragging, or some of us may be on the same journey. Some of us may be experiencing the same things, or scratching their heads, I guess, so to speak. Before I got into this spiritual journey, I was a little bit aware of the invisible, I guess is what you want to say. I've always experienced things since I was a child that I can't explain, but through life, the diluting of the mind, so to speak, I guess, being trapped in this world, or sucked into society's way of thinking. And that's really pretty much what society wants us to do anyway, is get away from more of the spiritual world and the more into the worldly world. Especially nowadays, you're seeing it a lot more nowadays, how the media and the government's taking over everything. And I'm not a political person, by no means. I've never really put much faith and trust in the government. They can't be trusted anyway. But being stuck in this worldly world, and the conscious mind starting to take over. Once the conscious mind starts to take over, and you get caught up in the fear and the worry and the doubts that go along in your mind, your conscious mind, it fades out. The subconscious mind, the God-controlled mind. And every human being is a soul and a spirit. And we are trained by society and their rules. And that's not who we are. And we get lost. And when we start to tap into spirituality, it's funny because I was raised very religious, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can experience God in religion, but there is some confusion when it comes to religion, and you can get lost in there as well. I mean, they start controlling your mind as well with their beliefs and their teachings, and you start depending on them to guide you, and then you can get lost as well. And I, being raised religious, I never really kind of got into religion. It's funny, my life's been pretty painful. My whole life has been pretty painful, and considering that I was brought up in religion and their teachings, and you would have thought that with that mindset that I would be happy. I would, and I wouldn't say I was miserable, even though it was a pretty rough life. I never hung on to things too much, but they were still there, regardless. So being raised in religion, you would have thought that it wouldn't have been so bad. And then once I started had that dramatic experience, then turned into spirituality. And I remember going on the road to spirituality, and religion considers spirituality as New Age, because there's a lot of terms that are used in the spirituality world, terminologies that they're not familiar with, and they say that that's not good, that's not right. But spirituality is ancient, it's old, it's as old as religion. So once I started diving into that and getting more into my subconscious, I started seeing things how they really are through the eyes of the spirit, through the soul. I started to connect to my soul and steered away from my flesh. The invisible started to become visible, and I started to awaken my gifts. So I'm not really bragging. It just being deluded through life, and not really experiencing what I'm experiencing now. And then once I'm starting to experience it, I was always drawn to the supernatural. I was always drawn to the spiritual world. I always had a calling, per se, I guess. I felt on that more of that side, but because being raised religious, they would consider that as demonic. And of course, I was in my conscious mind, so I was easily influenced. These people are religious people. They're supposed to know all these things and godly things. But that religious person was guided by another religious person. That's how it works. You get into spirituality, you're guided by God. God leads you. If you're connecting to the spirit and the soul, which is controlled by God, then God starts to lead you. Religious people don't get that. They don't understand it. If they don't understand it and get it, they consider that demonic or not godly. So I'm not being led by man, I'm being led by God. Sorry I keep getting off subject here, and like I said, I'm not trying to brag. But once I started connecting to the soul and the spirit and to God himself, I started to see things. I started to experience crazy things. Things I just can't wrap my brain around. It's really, unless you haven't experienced it yourself, and I'm sure there are a lot who have. And I remember the first thing I started to experience and started to see was colors. I started to see colors. These colors that I was seeing was the colors of our auras or our chakras, whatever. Both are the same things. And that was really odd to me. It wasn't. It didn't scare me. I didn't think I was dying. I had an idea that it was spirit. It was God. I didn't think it was evil. The colors I was seeing were beautiful colors. I wasn't getting an evil vibe from it. And the colors that I was seeing was going along with certain things that I was experiencing. People I was communicating with. It was strange because I was seeing these I was seeing these colors through text messages. If I was text messaging an individual on my phone, we have the keyboard, and it's white, and I would read the person's words, and in response to their words, I would start to respond to that. And I guess what I was doing was I was connecting to their energy through their words. And as I was doing that, I was seeing a color affiliated with them. I didn't quite know what was going on. I know what I was seeing. I knew it wasn't my phone, because I've had other phones and it does the same thing. So I knew it wasn't that phone. So I would tell these people, "Hey, I'm seeing this color," and they would ask me what color that I'm seeing, or what does that mean, and I was fresh into that. I was new. I was pretty much going by my intuition, by these colors that I was seeing. I wasn't doing any research. I've never been much on looking up things and researching things. Then I wasn't. I'm a little more into the research thing now versus like this numbers, the synchronicities of numbers that I see, and these numbers that God gives me. I'll look them up to see the meanings. Just curious if it's going along with what's going on in my head. And most of the time it is. But I would see these colors, and I would tell them what I'm seeing. And I guess I kind of did some research on it, because I would look up the color and see what it meant. And I would send it to the person. This is the color that I'm seeing, and this is the meaning behind the color that I'm seeing. And they would agree to that number would go along with what's going on with them at the time. Each color, I guess, represents a certain emotion, I guess, a certain physical feeling, I guess. I mean, just from my experience. And I've been going through this now for a while. So it started with the colors. And then it started, I guess, with feeling emotions, starting to get into people's thoughts, I guess, past and the present. I started to see people that were affiliated with the person that I was communicating with through text message. So people would pop up into my vision, and not like literally in my front of my face, but just like a thought in my head. But it wasn't a person that I knew. And of course I would relay to the person what I was seeing. I've even had people feel me from a distance. So I would tell them that I was going to send them a hug, or I was going to connect to them, and I would imagine myself comforting this person, hugging this person. And in response to that, I would get, "Oh wow, I have an actual physical feeling. I feel, tingleness in my arms, in my hands, in my head and my feet." People have said they felt like a warm blanket being wrapped around them. Very, very, very soothing and comforting. Nothing negative, nothing bad, nothing painful. Some people would freak out, and I didn't. Like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing. I would just tell them that I would do that. But when I was doing that, I was connecting it. I was doing that through my subconscious mind now instead of my conscious mind, because now I'm starting to dive into spirituality and connecting to God and the Spirit, which is our subconscious. So I'm just seeing a big bright flash of purple as we're speaking. So I would see these things, these visions with these people. I had a friend of mine. He went out of town with his family to, I don't know, Michigan, Massachusetts area, something like that. And he didn't really tell me exactly where all he was going to be staying. And I was pretty close to these people. I was actually really close to these people. Spiritually wise, I was very much connected to these people. I connected myself to them several times. So I meditated and I connected to them, and I saw, and they told me they were going into a house. They were staying in a house, but I saw something when I connected to them, and it was a place. It was a house, and it looked like what looked like to be an apartment, because I could see parking spots. But I was seeing this place from the right side of so I was looking on like I was guarding, is what it looked like. I could see everything, details of everything. And I relayed the message to the guy of what I saw, that I connected to them, and I saw someplace, and I just described what I saw. And I said, I thought you were staying in a house, but I thought I saw an apartment complex. That's what I told him, because I saw parking spots. Well, he sent me a picture, an aerial picture of, it was really strange because the picture he sent me was kind of like how I saw it. And supposedly the house, according to the picture, there's an apartment complex or condominiums that connected to the house. So what I saw was correct. It was right. So I guess I started to do remote viewing. Now I was able to start to remote view. And this had happened multiple times. I would connect to people, and I would see incidences that were in their past, that had happened in their past. I guess things that stuck out in their heads that was pretty dramatic. You know, we have things that happened to us in our past that were dramatic, and we see it, we hang on to that. And I would see these things that these people were hanging on to, and I would bring it up, and it was real. It was something that would really happen. So I started to notice that I saw colors. I'm starting to connect to people. I started realizing that I can connect to people to take away their pains, physical pains. Connect to people to help them through death. I've done this before. You've seen. I have videos that show that. And it's been increasing now. Before, I always described it as looking through a hazy glass, fogged over glass. Couldn't quite see through it clearly. I remember mentioning to somebody that it was almost kind of like a radio station, the old turn knob radio stations where you flip it through the station. In between stations, there's static. And it was just like I just couldn't quite tune in to the individual. And I noticed through time, as I started to go through energy upgrades and DNA upgrades and more awakenings, Kundalini awakenings and stuff like that, it started to become clearer. I had communicated recently, and this is it's really strange, and I still scratch my head about it because I just can't quite figure it out, and I don't know how it's even possible. But I recently communicated with somebody and saw some faces with them and told them what I saw, and the faces I saw were actual real people that were affiliated with this person. And I had a person contact me that knew what I was capable of and asked me if I could see one of their relatives, relatives that had passed away. I saw a person. It was strange because I saw a person, and the person I saw wasn't the person that they were wanting me to contact. But the person that I saw was a friend of theirs that actually had died. And I told him what I saw and what I was experiencing with this individual, and it turned out to be true. Everything that I saw with this person. Excuse me. But I saw another individual with this person. And I described to him, hey, I see this person, and this person's looking at me in the face. Not in real life, though, obviously. And it just so happened to be the cousin or the person that she wanted me to connect to originally. And when I started to communicate, and I wouldn't necessarily say communicate, because I'm really weary about communicating with the dead. I don't like really communicating with the dead. That doesn't mean that they don't communicate with me, and I don't know. But I know what I experienced. And this is the whole religion thing again. They always say that we're not supposed to connect to the dead, and we're not supposed to relay messages and stuff like that. But the person that I connected to was exactly the person that this person was describing. They even sent me a picture, and it was the exact person that I saw in my vision. The same exact person. I described them to a T. And this is not the first time. I've done this several times. But it was really strange. It was like this person started to speak through me. And I was relaying messages to the person that was asking me, and it was what they needed to hear. It was what they wanted to hear, what they needed to hear. And yesterday, I was speaking to a person and telling them that I can communicate with the dead, and they weren't really taking me serious because they were one of those type people. No, nothing wrong with that. She asked me if I could find her cat. She had lost her cat, and I saw a cat. I saw a cat appear in my vision. And I told the girl what I saw. I asked the girl if it was a striped cat. She said yes. I said, is it an orange and white? And she just completely flipped out, like, because I told her that I could do this, and she's like now dumbfounded, because she's like an unbeliever, a narrow-minded type person. I don't mean that in a negative way, but you know what I mean. So these gifts that I have are coming very strong, and when I go through these awakenings that I'm going through, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, and it's really freaky to me. It's really scary. I wouldn't say scary, but it's unbelievable. It's incredible to me how these things are even possible. It really is incredible to me. So if you're going through all this, like me, good luck. Try not to freak out. I've seen some pretty crazy things in my life, so things like this don't really scare me. It does scratch my head sometimes and puts me in awe, because I'm just completely dumbfounded by what I'm seeing. It's just amazing to me. None of this stuff is visible. I mean, obviously I can see it, but you know what I mean. It's almost proof of the supernatural or the spirit, of how real it is. So I hope this video helped. If you're going through things, stick with it. Please try not to be too scared of what you're experiencing. Don't freak out. Always try to keep a loving and positive mindset, because however we put our minds is where we will project. So just try to keep it loving and positive. Put God first. If you're a godly person, it doesn't mean you have to be religious at all. You don't have to be religious. It has nothing to do with religion. But put God first, or whoever God you worship. Excuse me. Put them first. Always attach yourself to them. If it gives you peace and gives you love and positivity, then connect to that before you get into your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind's very powerful, and you have to be very wary and careful diving into that. Not hard to contact. I love you guys, and I hope the best for you. And I'm not hard to get a hold of, and I will be there for you. And I love you, and Godspeed.